Now, I bet some of you are surprised to see me here. If anybody has a word or two to say before laying this son of a bitch to rest, it's me. I gave him half my life, so I'm going to take over half of his death. The first time I met Punxsutawney Phil, he was actually on a date with another woman. A woman he would later describe as having, quote, monkey tits. So I guess I should have seen then that he didn't have a lot of respect for women. Well, she went to the bathroom and he scooched down a bar stool or two just so he could tell me that he thought I was beautiful and his date was a flop and he'd like to see me sometime. Now this was before he was the Punxsutawney Phil, you know. Back then he was just a regular groundhog doing regular groundhog shit, but he was charming. So this may be a bit of a bubble burster for some of you, but us groundhogs, we typically only live about 6 to 10 years on average, and my groundhog, whose real name is Cyril, was actually the 24th Punxsutawney Phil. Yeah, well, before all the glitz and the glamour, we were really very happy. He was fun and thoughtful, sweet, very kind. We were just two groundhogs in love. Well, then came the fall of 1989. See, number 23 kicked the bucket and they needed to find a replacement very quickly. Cyril was a natural choice. He was punctual, gregarious, great with humans, very cuddly. He was so cuddly. And you people, you just ate it up. Yeah, well, pretty soon. He was up for his first Groundhog Day. He predicted an early spring. He was correct. Pretty soon, there were notes of Thanksgiving and gifts and little trinkets pouring in from all over. He loved it, all of it, the adoration, the attention, the parties, the booze, the women who would smile from across the room. I will admit, I was much younger and a bit insecure, perhaps a little needy, which might explain why I stayed despite the early warning signs. Should we have gotten married? No. But we did. And if I'm going to be honest, you know, really completely honest, I loved it. I loved it. I loved being Mrs. Punxsutawney Phil. The first Mrs. Punxsutawney Phil, I would like to add. In the beginning, things were great. Yeah, we had a nice place, good jobs. We had a very active social life. We had a lot of fun together. And then as each Groundhog Day came and went, well, things got a little strained between us. Pretty soon, he had an assistant, but I used to keep his schedule. And then I used to take phone calls from news outlets and journalists. Suddenly, he needed a publicist. We used to like to cook dinner together and have our friends over for parties. And now he was watching his weight, and he would only eat his Nutrisystem delivery meals, and he only wanted to keep time with notable Pennsylvanian figures. And then he did the unthinkable and moved us above ground. Do you know how hard that was on me, on us? I mean, no digging, all that sunlight. We were in a glass enclosure, for God's sake. There was no room to do anything. I mean, we had an exercise wheel, but I think that we all know that that is not the same as actually being a groundhog, doing groundhog things. Well, slowly but surely, he was becoming a little bit more distant, and kind of in ways that I knew were there, but you can't really see. Sort of like when you look up at the night sky, you know there's constellations up there. But until somebody points it all out for you, it just sort of looks like a smattering of stars. But you know. Money was pouring in though, and my career as an interior designer was taking off. I didn't want to rock the boat. It's funny because women can put up with so much crap in one aspect of their life if they know they've got everything else nailed down. And I needed to know that my finances in my home were squared away so that I could focus on my dreams and my goals. I had to do that because Cyril saw any of my goals as cute little side projects, second only to being half of the February 2nd royalty. Well, my mother once said to me, "Honey, don't you ever depend on a man to take care of you. Because whether it's his choosing or God's, he'd be gone at any moment. You damn well better be ready and able to take care of yourself." So, I started taking classes in business. I went to night school. I started reading books, started making contacts in the community, contacts that I had made as Mrs. Punxsutawney Phil. It was actually my greatest resource, and you're goddamn right I exploited it. I had earned that much at least. Well, I was quickly becoming the shabby chic of underground living, and the Punxsutawney Phil name was really helping me make my mark. It was funny because for a little while there, Cyril really started to respect me. He started to listen when I would talk about work. He stood a little taller alongside me. Probably because I stood a little taller for myself. I was bringing in my own sum of money, and some of that burden was kind of off of his shoulders for a while, and we were more balanced. We were happy. Felt like we had something worth fighting for. Things were going great, and little did we know that there was a script floating around Hollywood about to get the green light, and it was going to change everything forever. You know it, I don't have to tell you. What started out as a fun brush with fame quickly became a fucking nightmare. There were long nights on set. He'd come home and he would be surly, just looking for a fight. He'd be out with the cast, drinking, doing blow, back alley craps, fast women. Then there was the press junkets, the interviews, the radio shows. I hardly saw him at all, and when I did, he was either drunk or annoyed with me or both. Some people skyrocket to international fame, and they still have wives and families and a sense of being grounded and humble. And some people are narcissistic megalomaniacs who are looking for a catalyst to skyrocket their selfish ego into the next stratosphere. That was Cyril. Even still, he did have his moments. When I had my brush with cervical cancer, he cleared his schedule, stayed right by my side until I was in the clear. He used to visit sick children and their families at the local Ronald McDonald House. He donated to Bill Clinton's campaign, and he fundraised for wounded soldiers. In fact, when I was at home and he was on the road during the press tour, I would very often come home to a big, beautiful bouquet of elderberry flowers. He knew those were my favorite. Just because. No reason. Just because. But no matter how many nice moments Cyril had, it couldn't make up for the thousands of not nice moments that we were having. Well, I left him after I found him in bed with Sherry. Hi, Sherry. Who then left him after she found him in bed with Tiffany. Good to see you. Even still, we stayed together longer than we should have, 5 years, which was the longest relationship that either of us would ever see. We far surpassed my mother's expiration date for the marriage. She never liked Cyril. Hates him to this day. Is probably going to piss on his grave. Guess that's what makes a mother's love so special. The Punxsutawney Phil that you all know, the one that you loved and cherished as your fabled local hero, was not the woodchuck you thought he was. He was complex. He was terrible and wonderful all at the same time. He was a public figure and a private nightmare, wrapped up in fur, but he did his job well. He kept your tradition and your hopes alive each winter, and without fail, right up until this last week, he did his job beautifully and proudly. It will indeed be a long winter, Phil. So may you rest in peace, Cyril Stanley Skiriday, you dumb dead woodchuck. You were a real son of a bitch, but you were also the love of my life. Goodbye, Punxsutawney Phil the 24th, and thank you.